But this is what did happen. About 1991, 1992, several prominent artists left Marvel Comics to found Image Comics. They had their own studios, they owned their own material. Rob Liefeld, Jim Lee, Dale Keown, Todd McFarlane, Eric Larson, and they gave us Spawn and Savage Dragon and Wildcats and Youngblood and Shadowhawk from Jim Valentino, and so on. Image Comics grew and grew, interacted with other companies like Valiant Comics. We saw, again, a strong presence from the independent comic market, but as the ages went forward and a new era of speculator market came, we certainly saw the breaking of the Bad in the Nightfall storyline, the death of Superman in the Death of Superman storyline. And the speculator market again saw people cashing in on these big events, these new number ones, these major comic events, and the speculator market's interest shifted. Many of these things were resold extremely cheaply, glutting the market and causing a new comic crash. Now, that comic crash was devastating, this time not just for the independents, but also for Marvel and for DC. Both Marvel and DC were able to recover, but the recovery was a long time coming. Now, at this point in time, print runs on almost everything. Even Amazing Spider-Man, even Uncanny X-Men, even Batman, print runs shrank. Numbers from the 1940s in the millions had become numbers in the thousands, sometimes the single-digit thousands or even tens of thousands, but most definitely it seemed like comics had lost a big piece of their audience. It's hard to pinpoint exactly what turned it all around. It could have been a shift in, again, creative energy. New writers, new artists, invigorating older books, invigorating books like Daredevil, Brian Michael Bendis, Joe Quesada, Alex Maleev. Daredevil took off. I should point out the writing of Kevin Smith, filmmaker Kevin Smith, who had worked not only on Daredevil, but also on Batman and Green Arrow and many other things. These names attracted a new audience, and we saw the comic sales start to pick up, but they still had not reached their old pinnacles. Something that did definitely help bring positive energy back to the comic industry was the film market. We had always had films. We had always had a presence of superheroes in film, in television, whether it be the Republic serials of The Adventures of Captain Marvel or the Max Fleischer Superman animateds, certainly into the 1960s Batman television series, the 1970s Christopher Reeve Supermans, and onwards. 1989 gave us Michael Keaton's Batman, 1992 gave us Batman Returns. But something happened in that period of the late 90s and the early 2000s with the film Blade. Blade, you wouldn't have thought very much of, a support character from the Tomb of Dracula, but right creative energy, right actor, right thematic material at the right time, and Blade brought new, fresh, and positive attention to comics. Blade was followed by a succession of other films which grew into franchises, the X-Men films, the Amazing Spider-Man films, and so on. Now, as we move forward with that takes us even farther into the 2000s, the early 2000s, the current 2000s. We certainly see the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but that's the film franchises. What happened to the comics? Well, the comics began to, once again, attract new audiences, and they found new ways to reach those audiences. The modern age of comics gave us the digital age. This is the age where people can read their comics online on their mobile devices, their iPads, their phones, their computers, what have you, without having to accumulate boxes and boxes and boxes of printed material. There was still a strong presence of the comic collector collecting their books. Here we see a great many of them. I have a large collection myself. So there's two different ways to get this stuff. The trade paperback market exploded, and the trade paperback market exploded by reaching into booksellers like Borders and Barnes & Noble, Books A Million. Other places where books could be found, you have only to walk down the manga section and the graphic novel section and see how rapidly these trade paperbacks are collected from their 5-issue, 6-issue, 10-issue, 12-issue arcs, compiled into bound books, which a new collector can digest all at once, and any number of series, whether it be Alan Moore's Watchmen, Neil Gaiman's Sandman, certainly a succession of Spider-Man story arcs, Batman story arcs, almost the entirety of the New 52 collected into trade paperback form. Comic books can be digested in a great many ways now, and this again brought strength back to the industry. So, from a dark period of time toward the end of the Copper Age into the Modern Age, and now we are in the second half of the Modern Age. Experts do not clearly and fully agree on when an age begins and ends. We could all say the Golden Age begins in 1935. Most people say it ends with World War II or somewhere between 1945 and 1948. Other people carry it all the way to 1955. Who can say? 1956 begins the Silver Age, and we mostly agree on that, but where does it actually end? Most people say it ends with Jack Kirby leaving Marvel and going to DC. We come to the Bronze Age. The end of the Bronze Age is in dispute. We come to the Copper Age. The Copper Age's beginning and ending is in dispute. And the Modern Age is the age that we are currently in. And this is the age of DC's rebirth. This is the age of the new Marvel. This is where we have the DC titles. They are very strong. Aquaman, Flash, Wonder Woman, Tom King's Batman, and so on. This is where we see the new X-Men Blue, X-Men Gold, Weapon X, Generation X soon upcoming, the new Scarlet Spider. We just kicked off Secret Empire with Captain America. And these titles are bringing in excited readers. But we have a very strong presence from Image Comics and their creator-owned material. Image Comics is no longer all about Spawn and the Wildcats and Youngblood, etc. It's now about creators and their smaller single titles, but it's also about big things like The Walking Dead and Saga, Black Science, and so on. So, I have taken us all the way from the Golden Age into the Modern Age and into the Modern Age, and I hope you enjoyed taking this ride with me. Join me next time. I will have even more material for you.